So welcome everybody. I am sitting here with Darren Connor DeAngelis, and I think I'm supposed to point that way on the screen. He is also known as DC, and if you don't know, he's a pretty big deal in Jiu Jitsu. So as a purple belt, he was gi and no gi world champ, I believe. Also won the Pans heavyweight, and he was the absolute champ at purple belt. Then in 2019, he was the Rio Grand Slam champ at brown belt, and you're currently the number 4 rated middle heavyweight brown belt in the world. Is that right?
I have no idea. I don't pay attention to any of it, to be honest.
All right. If you're not paying attention, just know that other people are for sure.
That's good.
So a couple of things to know about DC that are kind of interesting. So he's lived in his van for over the past year to really kind of focus on his training and become one of the best jiu-jitsu fighters in the world. And then he also has a new single leg X instructional that's out on Jiu Jitsu X. And that is actually one of my favorite guards. And because my jiu-jitsu is not very good, it's one of the only that I can actually do. So welcome. Thanks for coming on, DC.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to meet you, Eric, and thank you for all the kind words. I don't think of myself like that, but I appreciate it, of course.
Awesome. So I know you kind of recently made a move, right? You joined American Legion Jiu-Jitsu with Keenan.
Yes, that's correct. I moved from Atos, I believe. It's coming up on, I don't know, maybe 5 months now since I left Atos. It was during this kind of whole corona virus epidemic that I kind of started thinking more about my future, and then I really just felt like I had to make some sort of change to expand my knowledge in some way. So that's why I kind of moved to Legion. We can get into that more if you want.
Yeah, sure. So how is it going? In the 5 months since you've been there.
I mean, it's been going great. I've been learning so much, and my kind of goal as to leaving Atos wasn't necessarily to learn more about jiu-jitsu. It was actually to learn about the other aspects of jiu-jitsu, like the business aspect, the marketing aspect. And I think Keenan is, in my opinion, the best marketer in jiu-jitsu, and he's very, very intellectual, very intelligent guy. And I really just try and learn as much from him, especially in that regards, and teaching as well.
Yeah, for sure. So what's it like rolling with him? Are you like constantly tied up in lapels and
rolling with him? It's cool, man. I would say there's nobody like him that I've ever rolled with because of that kind of lapel style that he has. It's odd, just the ability that he has to find the lapel out of nowhere, basically. I can almost pass his guard, and then he'll like throw his foot into the lapel and completely restart the position entirely. I don't know if you've seen his match with Marilla Santana, but that is very, very common, the occurrences that happen in our rolls. I'll get into a very, very strong position, and he'll bridge me off and maybe find a lapel, and then I'm back to square one. So it's one of the most frustrating experiences you can have. But it's always a learning experience every single time. I learn a new little detail about how to deal with this style of lapel, and I've actually kind of figured out the lapel game. I can just tell you, but basically, in order to beat the lapel on top, just give the person single leg X, and they have to like start switching to using the single leg X, and Keenan's single leg X is actually much worse than his lapel game. So that's kind of the answer that I found as of late, or before I got injured, actually.
All right, perfect. So we all now know how to beat Keenan Cornelius when we roll.
Yes, now you know.
Let's take a step back a little bit. How did you like initially get into jiu-jitsu?
I started jiu-jitsu. My brother did Muay Thai at a gym nearby. I'm actually in South Carolina currently recovering, and he was training jiu-jitsu at a gym nearby. And I was playing soccer for, say, 10 years, and I kind of was done with the whole coaching environment that soccer brings about, and just the coaches in general. I'm not a fan of being coached, I guess. But anyway, he was training jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and I tried both of them, just one class each. And I felt Muay Thai was kind of like a workout. I wasn't interested in working out. I wanted to learn something cool. And then I tried jiu-jitsu, and there were so many different technical little details in every single position. And I just thought, like, wow, what an intricate and deep sport. And I just felt like I'm just going to throw myself entirely into this now. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, and if I remember right, like you moved like when you were like after you graduated high school, like from South Carolina to San Diego, right?
That's 100% correct. Yeah, I after high school, I kind of negotiated with my parents. I was like, come on, like give me a year to just not have to go to college. Luckily, I'm very fortunate that I have amazing parents, and they allowed me to do that. And so I went out to Atos for a year, and I met with Dominique Bell, who's a good friend of mine. He actually trained in South Carolina as well. He's a black belt at Atos now. And I lived with him for about 3 years, and it was an amazing experience, right off the bat.
So, you trained at Atos. So what's it like to roll with like Lucas Barbosa or Andre Galval?
Oh man, I actually felt quite good rolling with Andre Galval. But Lucas Barbosa, the amount of strength that he possesses, it's actually ridiculous. I did not enjoy it. Every single time, maybe you get a good position on him or whatever it is, he'll explode out, and there's just no holding this monster that he is. And I would say definitely out of all the competitors there at Atos, out of all of the ones that you can think of, Lucas was definitely the most difficult training session for me.
Yeah, I can imagine rolling with them, and I don't want to at all. Like while it'd be fun, getting smashed the whole time doesn't seem that great.
It's not fun, honestly.
So I know you have kind of an interesting story of your living situation when you were living in San Diego and working out at Atos. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, about 5 years into training at Atos, I realized that there's this like huge black hole in my life, which was like paying for rent, having to pay for rent. My parents were helping me, supporting me pay for rent, as well as Hyperfly as well. So I just felt like I have to get this out of my life, get this rent problem out of my life. So I kind of talked to my parents, and I had a little bit of money saved up, and they offered to pay for half if I were to buy a van and build it out with my dad and my brother and his our carpenter friend. And so that's kind of what I did. I moved back for 4 months. We selected a van, and in South Carolina, vans are much cheaper. And then we selected a van, we built it up, and then I moved right back to Atos, and I started living in the parking lot of Atos, and it was a great experience. I've learned so much. I can go into that as well if you wish.
Yeah, I mean, it seems cool, but I also have a wife and a 5-year-old, so I don't know that it works. So what's it like? Like, what are some of the logistics of?
Sure. Well, I'll start with like the pros and cons, I guess you could say. So the big pros of living in the van is for one, it allows you to singularly focus on whatever it is that you're doing in life. But that's kind of the con as well. It's kind of a double-edged sword, and that allows you to completely singularly focus on one thing, but it doesn't allow you to do much of anything else. Like, it's hard to have a real job on the computer or do any sort of computer work, making videos, making Instagram posts. These are all difficult things now that you're living in a van. Basically, the only huge plus is that jiu-jitsu is very easy. And then the other cons of that are, for one, sleeping on the road is not an easy thing to do. The vibrations of the road, especially near Atos and even near Legion, when I moved to Legion, the vibrations kind of vibrate the road rather vibrates as you're trying to sleep, and it kind of really disturbs your sleep. So that's one of the main difficulties as well. And then another difficulty would be cooking. Cooking is not an easy thing to do in the van. It's a very tight space, and anything you do, oil splatters everywhere. It's just a big mess. So I mainly just ate at Chipotle every single day. And I mean, also I have a girlfriend. She lives in Brazil. That's actually why I speak Portuguese. And we're actually going to have to move out of the van soon when she comes here, but that's another topic. But yeah, that's pretty much the van. It's great. Like I said, it's great for those who are singularly focused on one thing and already have their kind of money-making career ready to go or set up.
Yeah. And so obviously you've kind of chosen jiu-jitsu as your career, and that's the path you're gonna go with going forward. What are some of the key things that you've learned on this journey?
I've learned that you cannot singularly focus on jiu-jitsu if you want to make money. It's what I've learned. I've learned that, yes, like becoming very, very good at jiu-jitsu is useful. And I started jiu-jitsu a little bit late. I started at 16. So some people had maybe a head start in regards to starting at 12 or 10 or whatever it is. But I've noticed that if you want to actually make money in the sport, for one, you have to be able to speak well. And this is especially hard for Brazilians who are coming into the United States, because there's no money in teaching really in Brazil, unfortunately. but so they have to, and I have to as well. I have to learn how to speak well and present the techniques and positions in a easy to understand way, which is a really difficult skill. Like teaching is not an easy skill. And then you have to learn how to market yourself and how to actually make somebody click whatever it is that you're broadcasting, because that's not easy to do as well. So I mean, there's these other skills that I never really thought of, and writing is a skill that I'm working on currently, knowing how to write and copyright and all these different kind of sales writing and everything like this. I'm currently really diving into these different fields, and I wish I had kind of known about that. This is important. You should do this like earlier. But I mean, I was so focused on jiu-jitsu, and that's that. So I mean, the main takeaway from that is diversify a little bit. Of course, jiu-jitsu can be your main focus, but you should be a little bit diversified.
Yeah. And, as I mentioned earlier, as I was, kind of going through all of your accomplishments, you've done a lot in jiu-jitsu. Who are some of the guys that you look up to in the jiu-jitsu world?
Sure. Well, I appreciate that you think I've done a lot. I still don't feel like I've done very much, but I would say, without a doubt, the person that I've modeled most of my game after, or thought that their game was the coolest thing ever, was Murilo Santana, who I actually just met him not so long ago at Fight to Win, like my title match. I met him there, which was really cool. And another competitor that I've kind of modeled myself, Leandro Lo. Everybody kind of models themselves a little bit after Leandro Lo. In the very beginning stage at Blue Belt, I thought lapel was cool. So I did actually like study some Keenan Cornelius, and then I moved on from that. I said, no, that's some garbage. I don't want to do that. And then I would say, and then also Dominique Bell. I studied and modeled my game a lot after him, just because he was a huge influence on me in regards to life in general and jiu-jitsu as well.
Nice. All right. And so, as far as your training goes, like when your knee isn't hurt,
Yeah.
How often are you rolling?
That's a good question. I actually think I was a little bit too extreme, and I'm thinking that the way my routine was not sustainable, but my routine was basically this. Monday through Saturday, I would train every single morning at 12 o'clock, and not all the trainings on Saturday, the training wasn't very hard. But Monday through Friday, that 12 o'clock training is kind of like a comp training. And then Monday through Friday as well at, I would say, 11 a.m., I would say, I would drill for 1 hour with whoever I could find. So I would drill just the techniques that I wanted to work on, whether that be passing, sweeping, takedowns, whatever it is, for 1 hour. And then at night, I would, depending upon the day, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would lift at Electrum Performance, which is this shirt here, which is a gym nearby in San Diego, who are just incredible strength and conditioning coaches. They actually have an app as well. But I would lift there. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, I would teach one of those days. I would believe I would teach on Tuesday night and then roll lightly. And then Thursday would be my night off. And then yes, and then Friday night, there we go. Okay, perfect. That's it.
So a lot.
Yeah, too much, honestly. And that's actually the reason why I got hurt. I knew that I showed up to Thursday morning, 12 a.m. training. I drilled first, and I showed up to training. I told myself, like, Connor, like, you're pretty tired today, man. You need to rest. You need to just go with the light guys. Don't let the ego kind of mess with you too much today. Don't let somebody entice you into rolling a hard round. Just go light. If you have to lose. And a hard, tough guy asked me to roll, and I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna smash you now. Like, I let that ego kind of enter in, and I got kind of pushed back as I was rolling, and just a tear right there in the meniscus, and I scooted off the mat. It was locked up, and I knew that was the last time I trained jiu-jitsu, like 4 months ago.
Well, at least it's good to know it happens to, some of the best guys in the world too, where all of us, we say, like, I'm just going to roll light today. And that never happens. Like, you do that for one round, and then the very next guy, it's 100% trying to kill each other.
Exactly. It's really hard. I feel like it's almost harder to not roll hard, at least for different athletes. Some people are different. Of course, everyone is different. But at least for me, it's hard not to roll hard, and that kind of it got me injured. It's not a good thing. You have to have some sort of balance in all things, really.
Yeah. So you mentioned you tore your meniscus. What does the rehab look like for you?
Well, because I tore it and they didn't just shave it off, it wasn't just a straight meniscectomy, I believe it's called. It was a meniscus reconstruction. So they actually took the torn meniscus and they sutured it back up and put it back together, because supposedly it was in the red zone, which means there was possible blood supply to the area. So maybe it's possibly going to heal. So it looks like about 3 months, and I'm nearly 2 months in. And so I have maybe 1 more month before I can start getting back on the mat. But I've been lifting and swimming and doing other physical exercise.
All right. When you're getting ready for a big tournament, whether it's the Worlds or Pans or Fight to Win, something like that, what does your training look like? Does it change much from day to day, or because you're going so hard, it's pretty much the same?
That's a good question. I would say it doesn't change very much, although the way I enter the training changes. My goals in the training change. For example, when I don't have a competition that I'm preparing for, my goal in training is to constantly add new pieces to the puzzle that I'm creating, this jiu-jitsu game, this jiu-jitsu style that I like and I think is cool. I'm constantly adding little details to each position and each problem that I'm encountering in the training. Whereas when it's time to compete in these big tournaments, I kind of forget so much about adding new things and adding little new additions to my puzzle. And I just like solidify the puzzle. I just try and make that puzzle as strong as possible by just trying to kill everyone, basically, with the strongest game that I have.
Yeah. And do you find that, like, tournament to tournament, your style or your game plan changes, or is it pretty consistent? Like, I'm gonna go with this?
I would say it's pretty consistent, but as normally, like, say for example, in like an off-season kind of situation, or by off-season I mean there aren't any like major tournaments going on. I would say in that kind of scenario, like I said, I'm adding these new pieces to the puzzle. So when I have a tournament in those off-season times, say like a Fight to Win or just a random open, I'll use those opens as a way to test these new techniques that I'm working in the room, right? And then, so I guess my game does change a little bit in regards to these just smaller opens. But when it comes to the bigger tournaments, I'm just going to use my A game. And if A game doesn't work, I'm going to use B and then C. But it's always going to kind of go from like a hierarchy kind of system. Like it's going to go A, B, C, and then just go crazy, It's just give everything that I have rather than thinking so much, more instinctual rather than thinking wise.
So you said like random open. So do you just do like, you'll just like show up at like a Naga tournament or something like that?
I mean, I would. I mean, normally there aren't too many Nagas in California, but I mean, by random open, I mean just like a random IBGF open in Houston or Dallas or wherever,
Do you ever like show up on the mat and the guy across from you looks and goes, "Oh shit, like this is the guy that I'm rolling with"?
I've had some funny experiences, and it always makes me feel like, oh, this is easy. Like sometimes somebody will in the bullpen, they'll come up to me and be like, "Oh man, I saw your videos and yada yada, it's cool," and then I kind of just like know that I'm going to beat that guy and I move on to the next one. So, I mean, there are times like that, but I definitely try to respect everyone as much as possible. I would definitely suggest if you're ever, whoever's listening, they're going to compete against me, don't say that you've seen my stuff, because then I know I got you.
As you were talking, I was kind of picturing, I don't know if you've seen that video where like Jon Jones is in a Nogi tournament. And like, so I think it's a Naga tournament. The guy like shows up and like he's literally grappling with Jon Jones, and you can just see his face. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
I'm sure, man. I can't imagine that either.
Yeah, I think Gordon Ryan did the same thing a couple of years ago too. Like I get it. Like you need to practice, but also like, come on, dude. Like it's not.
Yeah. Give the guys a chance. I get you.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this: you mentioned you eat Chipotle every day, right? When you're living in the van. What does your diet look like when you're getting ready for, like, again, a Pans, a World, something like that?
Well, it kind of depends. I kind of look at my weight and see where I'm at. I compete in the middle heavyweight division, so that's 195 with the gi on. So if I'm a little bit heavy, I'll cut down on some of the rice that I eat at Chipotle or cut down on some of the tortillas. But really, like I don't really have the opportunity to cook very much my own food, like a healthier diet. Even though, I mean, I feel like the meat quality of everything these days is pretty much the same. But basically, I just start limiting my portions slightly. For example, um, say I eat a bowl of like 3 scoops of rice at Chipotle. I'll cut it down to 1 scoop of rice. You know, just to start losing that weight incrementally. Say 3 weeks out from a tournament, and then I depending upon how much weight I need to cut, I will cook in the van, and I would just cook eggs and a meat and a small carb. But normally it's Chipotle year round.
Okay. What do you do as far as like recovery or mobility, those kinds of things? Obviously, when you can actually bend your knee.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I don't do enough of those type of things. I don't do enough recovery work. I mean, I do. I have these yogi toes. Like my toes, for some reason, always get messed up in training. So they're just basically toe spacers. So just imagine your toes are like this, and you put a gel spacer in between them. So that's one of my main recovery things that I do in the van. I just like throw those in and put some Netflix on and then chill. But in regards to recovery, I don't do any sort of massage work. I don't do any sort of real physical therapy. I think my main recovery is lifting. I try and lift 100% correct all the time, very technically. I try to be as technically perfect as possible in both jiu-jitsu and lifting. And I think that normally keeps me away from any sort of injury or any sort of like cranks in the neck or anything like this. So that's kind of what I use for preemptive recovery. I'm not exactly sure how to say it, but do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I get where you're going with that. So in your, kind of strength and conditioning work, what does it look like? Is it like powerlifting? Is it CrossFit? Is it like jujitsu focused, like created by the Electrum guys? What does it look like?
Sure. I would say it's mainly powerlifting style workouts. Um, I mean, I could show you one here if you wish.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see what I got here.
And for those of you listening at home, he's pulling it up on his phone.
Yeah. So, for example, like this is, you guys can't see very well, but I'll run it off for you real quick. So, for example, it's always a full body exercise each time. Okay, I don't do like bodybuilding style. I don't do back one day and legs another day. It's full body. So, for example, in this workout, I would have a dumbbell incline press, and then that would be for chest. Then I would do a barbell pin lay row, which is for back, and then a dumbbell Arnold press for shoulders. And then I would add in some sort of some leg exercise, whether that be a barbell squat. Just I try and really hit the full body each time because I'm only lifting 3 times a week. And normally the set ranges are between 3 to 4 sets, and the rep range is either between 6 to 12. I normally don't go above those rep ranges nor below them.
Okay. And are you doing anything like conditioning wise? And I kind of put that in air quotes, whether it's running or swimming or something like that.
Sure. Just recently, because I've been injured, I've been really getting into swimming. But before that, very little conditioning other than just more jiu-jitsu. But I think in the future, due to wanting to kind of prevent more injury, I will add in maybe a swimming because it's very low impact on the body and it's good for conditioning as well. We have this Aerodyne bike at Electrum. Have you heard of those?
Is it kind of like the Echo bike, like the assault bike?
Yes, exactly. Assault bike. That's what it's called. Exactly. That seems to be really good as well to really push those high tempo cardio style workout sessions.
Yeah, those things are brutal. Like you see a workout, you're like, oh, so it's 20 seconds and then 10 seconds off. Like, oh, that's not going to be too bad. And by the second 20-second interval, you feel like you're going to throw up and you want to fall.
It's ridiculous how effective it is. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, we talked about your nutrition a little bit. We talked about your training. Do you use any kind of supplements, whether it's creatine or protein powder or those kinds of things?
Sure. I do use creatine, especially as of late. I try to use creatine. Basically, what I do is, it's not necessarily correct, but I use creatine up until a tournament, and normally I'm a little bit heavy due to the water retention from the creatine, and then I have to start cutting it down a little bit before a tournament. But in regards to protein, I use whey protein from myprotein.com. It's really good. It's really cheap as well, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's just really good protein. And I use that pretty much every single day. For breakfast, I didn't mention my diet too much, but for breakfast, I have Greek yogurt with no sugar or anything like that. And I just dump like 2 scoops of protein in it, mix it up, throw some granola, and just eat that. So like basically for breakfast, I'm getting about 70 grams of protein, which is huge, especially for building muscle. And those are basically the main 2 supplements that I use, other than some multivitamins, but that's about it.
How many calories do you consume a day when you're training as much as you're training?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I would say, I mean, at Chipotle, I imagine both. It depends on the day, but normally it's Chipotle for lunch and dinner. And what I do is kind of ridiculous. For one, I ask for 2 tortillas on the side. So we go through. I ask for a bowl. I don't know if you've been to Chipotle. I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
So I asked for a bowl, and then I asked for 2 tortillas on the side. And then not only that, I asked for 2 hard shell tacos on the side as well. So then now I have all these things on the side, which are supposedly free, you know, they're complimentary.
Yeah.
And then I just start going into the bowl. Like I do 3 scoops of rice, 3 scoops of black beans, chicken, guac, and cheese. And then basically I just have all this, and fajitas as well to get some veggies, right? And then I have all this, and then I create 2 burritos, and then I crumple up the chips, and then I throw those in the burritos, and now I have 2 burritos, and that's 1 lunch. So I mean, that sounds like maybe 4,000 calories. I don't know. It sounds like a lot.
That is like, I think like a normal burrito is somewhere between like 700 to 1,200, right? Calories.
Yeah.
How loaded you make it. So, all right.
Yeah. It's a lot.
All right. So let's talk about, when let's say it's fight day, right? And again, whether it's worlds, fight to win, whatever it is.
Sure.
What does your routine look like? Let's say you're fighting at like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, what time do you wake up, and then hydration, food, if any, that kind of thing?
Sure. Well, because I have the van, I kind of drive to the venue, and I park in a nearby neighborhood, and I like shut off all the lights. I sleep there, and I wake up. I try and sleep as much as possible, but you know how the nerves are sometimes. But I wake up normal, say 8 o'clock, 8:30, and I try not to get to the venue until say an hour and a half before, because all that noise and just people, it's not my thing. I'm kind of an introvert as well. So I try and show up an hour and a half before, and then I just put some music on, normally very calming music. I never like to really hype myself up in any way, shape, or form. I like to just be calm all the time. I like to just be, very mellow the whole time. And that's pretty much the main setup. As of late though, at least at my recent, or not too recent, but my fight to win match that I had recently, I would say 8 months ago, I started getting really big into meditation. So I've been like kind of meditating before matches as well. And that seems to be extremely beneficial, because it really takes you out of this nervous, stressful reality of I'm about to fight some other human being. And it completely takes you out of that, and you focus on your breath, or you focus on the little white dots, or little, the black when you close your eyes.
Yeah.
And it's really peaceful, and you put some music on, some noise canceling headphones, and you're completely out of that reality. And that I feel like is really amazing for trying to get the most performance out of your match.
So you mentioned that you're a pretty even, calm guy generally, and you even try to be even more calm when you're going into like a big fight or a big tournament. Do you still get those like first fight jitters, where like as soon as you lock up, like your hands get all tense and you're like your heart's pounding out of your chest, or have you kind of worked through that?
I really focus on breathing a lot. I especially when I'm about to slap the guy's hands, I really like, right when I slap the guy's hands, I move back and I take a super deep breath just to like completely calm myself once again. and even close my eyes, and then I'll like go into the fight. But I still do get the forearm kind of burning sometimes, depending upon the match. Really, the match that I prefer to have is I prefer to fight another strategical competitor, because I feel like if the person wants to think with me and try and outthink me, I'm gonna beat them. You know, that's what I feel like, at least. And I feel like my game, my overall strategy is very high level, and much higher level than my instinctual jiu-jitsu. I feel like there's two different forms of jiu-jitsu. There's thinking jiu-jitsu and there's instinctual jiu-jitsu. And I definitely side with the thinking jiu-jitsu. I prefer to have a slower match in which everyone's kind of just exchanging grips and trying to do everything technically, rather than this match of just explosion, scrambliness, and all right chaos. That's why I actually don't really like nogi very much, is because I'm not a fan of the chaos. I prefer the control of this thinking side of jiu-jitsu, and that's why I feel like I win the majority of my matches, because I outthink the person, and I have a better game plan, and I have a way better system that I've created than that other person.
So I know for most of us, when we had our first match as like a white belt, right, we went crazy, and we probably threw up when we got off the mats and that kind of stuff. Did you have a similar kind of experience, your first competition?
I would say my very first competition, the very first match I ever had in jiu-jitsu, I put the guy to sleep, which was kind of a cool little starter, I guess. But no, it's funny. I think I competed for the first time, say, 4 months into jiu-jitsu, maybe 3. And I remember I was so big into berimbolos at white belt. I don't know why. I thought berimbolos it was that berimbolo phase, I guess. I thought berimbolos were the coolest thing. But basically, I would like berimbolo somebody and end up in mount. And I completely forgot how to choke. I basically just like grabbed the guy's collar and just started pressing my forearm into him, completely losing all sense of technical, choking maneuvers. And it was crazy. So I definitely did have that kind of like just crazy, wild first tournament, just like most everyone, I bet.
Yeah, for sure. I most people can definitely relate to that. And I think, like, for me, like, I competed last weekend, and
oh, nice.
Like I try not to do that, right? It still sort of happens. Like it's like the first 30 seconds of the match, I still have all of that crazy energy, and then finally I can all right, now I have to pretend like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I would definitely say the first match of every tournament is unfortunately like that. Even for me, but like for me as well. After that first match, you finally feel like you're kind of in the zone, or you're completely calm, just because when you're about to fight someone, you're having extreme adrenaline spikes, and your body and mind just like doesn't handle that adrenaline very well. It's like that fight or flight kind of concept. It's just like kill or be killed, and you're just like, I'm gonna kill, and then everything goes up, So it's a hard thing to control, but after that first match, everything seems to calm down. I'm sure the same or similar for you as well, right?
Yeah, like I said, after the first 30 seconds ish, then I actually remember techniques and what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
You mentioned you're a pretty strategic guy, and you prefer to be kind of technical and think through your next move or your next 2 or 3 moves. What are your favorite positions or guards that you really enjoy?
Sure. I would say my favorite position in all jiu-jitsu is the De La Riva pant grip. I mean, that's all I need to start setting up all my different attacks. Either the De La Riva pant grip, so I mean you could say the De La Riva position, or just a cross collar grip. Now both of these kind of controls set me up for my entire system that I've created for myself, entering into the X guard position, which is what my course is about. I just created a course on Jiu-Jitsu X, like you said before, which basically just goes into all my different entries and sweeps from the single X position that I've been developing for the past 8 years of my jiu-jitsu career. And it basically goes through not entirely my entire game plan, but 70% of my game plan is right there in this course. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so as I said before, right, single leg X is one of my favorite positions and one of the only I can actually do. So yeah. I know from single leg X, I know how to take the back and I know how to get a heel hook, right? Other than that, what are some of the things that what are some of the other kind of setups that you can, or next steps you can go once you get the single leg X?
Sure. Well, I mainly practice in the gi. So and to be honest with you, this is kind of an interesting idea as well. I've kind of chosen the path of not focusing on submissions for, say, 70% of my jiu-jitsu career I don't focus on submissions at all. Like 90%, like I would say, and especially in tournament, I don't go for a submission unless I'm truly dominating my opponent. I 100% focus on controlling before any sort of submission attack. So in the single X position, I basically am just looking for various off balances, different kind of tilt sweeps in order to start entering into these different come up or stand up style variations of attack where you have the opponent's leg on your either bicep or shoulder, you kick them away and you lift their leg as you stand up and then take them down, kind of like a wrestling situation. So that's kind of my game plan, or what I like to do in the single X position.
Nice. Any other, positions that you're creating instructionals for, or that are coming out soon?
Yeah, I'm actually doing a complete course on my passing style. I have a very pressure-based passing style that I've kind of molded for myself from just like seeing other competitors like Murilo Santana. And I've kind of molded this kind of, it's not necessarily an over-under style passing position, but it's actually an over-over. It has a similar concept as to the over-under, but you're actually over both your opponent's legs and you're kind of on their hips, and then you're able to really maneuver their legs back and forth very easily and enter into these different side smash or folding style positions, which are my favorite position to pass from in jiu-jitsu, because I just feel like it's so ridiculously technical and I love the leg work behind it as well. So that's the next course.
Awesome. So, what does the future hold for you? Because I know you're a pretty young guy. You're like 22, 23, something like that.
I just turned 24 not too long ago. I mean, the future at the moment is, at least due to this injury, it's to improve all these other skills of my life, whether that be writing, sales writing, Photoshop, video making. All these skills are in the making so that I can further broadcast my teaching ability. And then I also hope to improve my teaching ability much more and really start entering into the teaching aspect of jiu-jitsu, the online teaching aspect. And hopefully, if all that goes well, I won't have to do the classic brick and mortar gym creation. I hope that I'll be able to make a living just off of jiu-jitsu teaching. So that's kind of currently the goal. And then also, of course, on the back burner, which unfortunately has to be put on the back burner just because of injuries and the need of money, is that kind of black belt world championship at IBJJF. That's kind of on the back burner now, whereas before this injury, it was in the #1 position. So that's kind of my future.
Nice. And where you mentioned that you're kind of creating like an online course, and you have a lot more coming out.
Yes.
People connect with you, find your stuff, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, on YouTube, I'm really trying to grow my YouTube. I'm trying to post twice every single week. I have this series on YouTube that's called Understanding Jiu-Jitsu. And basically in this series, I look at these high-level matches in which I used to study all the time and take details from, like Murilo Santana and Lucas Barbosa. And I go into these matches and I kind of do like a deep dive into these matches, and I use a nice little pointer tool and different drawings to help people understand what's happening in jiu-jitsu. Because unfortunately, like for the white to even sometimes early brown, people don't watch jiu-jitsu because they just don't like understand all the amazing things that are happening every single second of the match. Like there's always something happening, but if you don't understand it, it's not fun to watch, So that's something that I'm working on currently that you guys can find out on my YouTube. And then on Instagram, I'm constantly posting little mini techniques of like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and directing people to the full technique, which is on my YouTube as well. And just the future right now is create more courses on Jiu-Jitsu X, and then create my own website with my own courses so I can kind of get all the profits so I can actually make a living.
All right. So you mentioned your Instagram. What is it? Is it at DC?
It's at DC_DeAngelis. And then my YouTube, you can just type in DCD Jiu-Jitsu or Darren Connor DeAngelis and you'll find it there. And then I'm also very active on Reddit as well. Reddit seems to be a big population of Jiu-Jitsu. I would highly suggest posting this interview on Reddit. Maybe it's really amazing platform for anyone, and you don't need to have a high following or anything in order to get your posts seen. So you can find me on Reddit at DCDangelis.com. Not .com, sorry. DCDangelis is the Reddit tag, and that's about it.
All right. And for those of you at home, I'll spell out DeAngelis for you because I know sometimes it's hard to figure out. So it's DeAngelis, right?
Perfect.
All right. Yeah. And then the DC is Darren Connor. So DC_DeAngelis.
Perfect.
Awesome. So, check him out on Instagram. You got a YouTube channel, more Jiu-Jitsu X stuff coming up, and future black belt world champ, right?
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Are you going just gi, or are you gonna go gi and no gi black belt?
Just gi for now, especially because they added in heel hooks. I'm gonna have to go back and study how to do those. So that's in the future for sure.
All right, awesome. Well, DC, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was nice to meet you as well, and I wish you the best with this podcast and all your future endeavors.
You too. Thank you, DC.